episode 2 of our 4th series on the surnames and early families of Appalachia and the American South. On today's episode, we'll discuss an Anglo-Norman family name that's often used as an alternate form of 2 Gaelic names. We'll also discuss the Norman Conquest in the context of their contribution to words and family names that have become deeply ingrained into the cultures and histories of Great Britain and Ireland and the American South. For regular viewers of the channel, please stay to the end so I can throw a couple of programming questions your way. I also need to mention a scheduling issue for the next 2 weeks, so please stick around to the end. I hope you'll join me. Numbers 1 and 2, Callaway and Callaway. This is with a C. Callaway and Callaway with a C. Galway with a G and Galloway with a G, which I've already covered in an earlier episode. Galloway, that is. Not Galway, but Galloway. When I received the request to cover Callaway with a C, or Callaway with a C and an O in the middle of it, I thought researching these 2 spellings was going to be a backward slam dunk with 2 hands. I just assumed it was the Irish and Scottish forms of Galway or Galloway, which in Gaelic means the land of strangers. Galway is the name of an Irish county and city in the western province of Connacht. Boy, was I wrong. All I can say is that Callaway with a C and Callaway with a C and an A are actually forms of the same Anglo-Norman family name that was habitational for one who lived near a pebble bank or a pebble ford. McClysick doesn't include it in his awesome book, The Surnames of Ireland, so neither form is Irish. However, Harrison says it's often confused with the Gaelic or Celtic Galloway, so that's likely the case here in early Appalachia, early America, that is. With that stated, though, one of the most prominent southern families named Callaway lived in Virginia and Georgia. In fact, this family was instrumental in establishing the cotton-based textile industry in Georgia. But the Callaway family in America was started much earlier by Peter Callaway, or Callaway, in Maryland. Peter was born in England in 1640. He immigrated to Somerset County, Maryland, where he met and married Elizabeth Johnson. I have an Elizabeth Johnson in my own family tree, but it's not her. She came later. Together they had at least 5 young ones. I'm confident that while there might be some Callaway folk in America who came from Ireland or Scotland as Galloways or Galways, the colonial lines are of English origin. Number 3, Oakley or Oakley. When you hear the name Oakley, do you think of the Wild West lady sharpshooter named Annie Oakley? I sure did. I have to say up front that Annie Oakley was a stage name. Her real name was Phoebe Ann Mosey. What a name. If you're a Mosey out there, I don't mean anything slight there, but Phoebe Ann Mosey. The name change, I think, was doing some good business because she was, after all, a sharpshooter / entertainer in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. I think Annie Oakley sounds a bit more outdoorsy than Phoebe Mosey. What do you think? At any rate, the surname Oakley is a West Midlands habitational family name from England. It was given to someone long ago who lived in a clearing in an oak forest. Lee, of course, is an open field. Given that the folks from the Midlands weren't known to move north to Scotland or west to Wales or across the Irish Sea to the Emerald Isle, I wasn't surprised that the surname doesn't appear among the traditional surnames of those 3 places. Outside of Great Britain and Ireland, Oakley families are found in Australia, England, and of course New Zealand, as well as the northeastern United States and the American South. Elisha Oakley was born in Dutchess County, New York, to unknown parents in 1754. He married Elizabeth Yeomans, and together they had at least 1 son. His name was Jotham Oakley. He was born in New York, but he moved to Susquehanna Township in Pennsylvania, where he died in 1841. One of the earliest lines of Oakley in the South was started by the unknown parents of Addison Oakley, who was born in North Carolina in 1828. He and his lovely wife, Martha Fuller, had at least 5 young'uns. Their son, Cameron Oakley, born in 1863, died in 1939, moved to Virginia where he lived out his life. But his siblings, his 4 siblings that is, remained in or around Granville, North Carolina. I'm confident that members of the Oakley family originated in England and have been in America since the colonial era. Number 4, fountain. As you might recall, William, the Duke of Normandy, crossed the narrow English Channel from France in the late fall of 1066. He defeated a formidable but exhausted English army under King Harold Godwin at the Battle of Hastings. The French-speaking Normans went on to introduce some 10,000 words into the English language. Among those words were family names like Callaway and Fountain. In France, the name was topographic or toponymic, drawn from places like Fontaine and La Fontaine. In England, though, it was also given to families that lived near a spring or well. The English interpreted its meaning as spring fountain. In addition to America, I found genealogies of 19th century people named Fountain in Australia, so it's a geographically dispersed family name. Looking closer to the American South, I found some information on John David Fountain. He was born in North Carolina in 1750 to parents whose names have been lost to time. The name of his wife has also sadly been lost to time, but the names of his sons are remembered. They were John Israel Fountain, Henry Fountain, and Ethelred Fountain. For our English history buffs out there, you will recognize the name Ethelred as the name of King Ethelred II, who was the King of England from around 966 to 1016. Later, the Norman conquerors that came in 1066 after the Battle of Hastings, they established their power and ruled all of England for quite a while there. They decided that they would add the unready to his name, so Ethelred the Unready. But that's not the way his contemporaries saw him. At any rate, after John Israel was born, the family loaded up the wagon and moved to South Carolina, where Henry and Ethelred were born. They apparently thought that life among the Georgia peaches in Georgia would be better, so John and Henry moved to Wilkinson County while Ethelred settled further south in Irwin County. At the end of the day, I'm confident that Fountain is a colonial family of Anglo-Norman descent. Number 5, vines. Vines is an interesting name to me because it has a Latin base, which means that there are similar names found in France and Spain. In England, the name was given to a person who lived in or near a vineyard or vineyard. The S was given or added to refer to members of the family of vine. According to George Fraser Black, vine, as a name without the S in Scotland, was imported from Dorset, England. I didn't find it among the traditional surnames of Ireland or Wales. This name, too, could well be a gift of the Normans. One of the earliest lines of vines, say that 5 times, lines of vines, lines of vines, lines of vines, that I found was started by a man and unknown woman in North Carolina. I presume the father's name was Thomas Vines Sr. because his son, Thomas Vines Jr., or the second, was born around 1705, died around 1751. He carried on a line of men among other children that stretched to Thomas Vines IV. He was born in 1756 and passed away in 1838. Thomas IV lived in Virginia for most of his life. He died in Augusta County, Virginia. Once again, I'm confident that Vines is a colonial family of Anglo-Norman origin. Well, folks, that's about all I have for you today. If you'd like a free copy of the catalog of surnames and families that we've covered thus far, write to me at vantagepoint22@gmail.com. Remember, there's 2 N's in Vantage Point. Okay. And I will send it to you as an attachment as soon as I can. Before I close today, I need your input. I'm committed to covering all the surnames that have been submitted to me, and I think there's about 800 left that I haven't covered. So I invite you to offer your thoughts on a suggested idea that I have or been given to expand the series to include all colonial American surnames and families. It would be something like the Vantage Point would, of course, be the channel name. Anyway, it would have something to do with colonial families. Instead of saying, it would be surnames and early families of colonial America. How about that? Surnames and families of early, let's just say, surnames and families of colonial America. What do you think about that? Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I read all the comments, so you're not wasting your time, folks. Lastly, you might have picked up that from time to time I seem to be winded, a little bit out of breath. It seems I have a leakage in my heart as well as persistent atrial fibrillation, AFib. I'm scheduled for a less invasive heart surgery called convergent ablation, I think it's what it's called, convergent ablation, on Monday morning at 5 a.m. at Tenova Hospital at Turkey Creek in Knoxville. And I'll be in the hospital for about 3 days. I appreciate your well wishes and prayers. So until I see you again, may the good Lord bless and keep you. May He make His face shine on you and give you peace. Bye-bye.